Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video I have the latest from the live radar. For the latest weather warnings, as we still have some thunderstorm warnings around throughout the rest of today, but overnight, tonight into tomorrow, it is going to be quietening down as we see the humid air clearing away and slightly fresher westerly winds re-emerging. We'll look at in detail on the latest UKV, look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It is going to remain warm, it's going to remain above average, just not quite as oppressive as it has been the last couple of days. And we are going to see less showers as well, with slightly more stable west to southwesterly flow. However, later on next week, we could see another spike in heat. At the moment, it's looking like it's more of a drier spike in heat, so yes, humidity will rise, temperatures could get back up towards the high 20s or even low 30s, but at the moment we're not expecting huge thunderstorms. Still could be around, but not expecting them at this stage, so perhaps something warmer and drier later on next week, and that could set the scene for the second half of June. Not expecting it to be hot every day, but multiple spikes in heat definitely look like a real possibility, and we'll see that all on the longer range charts. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, much do like and subscribe. Now if you start on the live radar, you see the remnants of the instability from last night now heading through Northern Ireland and Scotland. Lots of heavy rain here and a few embedded thunderstorms still across parts of eastern Scotland, but for most, it is starting to settle down now. Still some hefty showers on the southern flank of this small low pressure system. Again, could be a few storms through this afternoon, evening, and maybe into tomorrow morning, but they're going to become less severe and less frequent as time goes on. But we did see some really severe storms last night. As we alluded to in yesterday's video, amber warning was issued for the far east, and you can see why. These intense storms grazed parts of Kent, Essex, up towards East Anglia. You see these dark lines and these yellows showing very localised, severe amounts of rain, falling, frequent lightning as well. You can see showers and some storms did clear inland, but it was the really severe storms worthy of an amber warning stayed along the east coast, and you can see where the bulk of them went through northern France yesterday as well. A bit of a gap through central England where we saw a few showers, but it wasn't quite as dense with those showers. And then we saw another line of storms moving up western parts. This was less intense rainfall, but more long-lasting. We saw some lines of storms moving up here for a long period of time, pretty much through yesterday afternoon all the way to around midnight. We saw these lines of storms, and you see this line here coming up from sort of Plymouth through central parts of Wales. We saw a line of storms consecutively moving up here. This was kind of one of these back building events where you see a storm moving through, and on its outflow see another storm, and eventually you kind of end up with this line of storms. And this is essentially what we've seen here, and that is why we've seen this intense amount of rain clearing through. And now you can see it is dumping the remnants of its moisture across Scotland throughout the rest of today. Now, do look at the temperatures this afternoon. Still very warm, if not hot, in the far east. Still hanging on to the heat and humidity, but it is dropping through the afternoon. Temperatures pretty much have peaked. I'm recording this around 1 p.m. and they pretty much peaked now and will be dropping throughout the rest of the afternoon as westerly flow re-emerges. And you can see fresher air is coming in off the Atlantic. It's not cold, it's still going to be warm, above average over the next few days, but just not as oppressive. And you can see where the heat now is across Germany as it does move eastwards. Now do look at the weather warnings just to sort of keep a close eye on them. For the rest of today, we've got a warning for Northern Ireland. Disappears at 6 p.m, so we've got a good 4 or 5 hours left again for heavy showers and storms, and again the same warning essentially till 6 p.m. here for much of Scotland and northern England. Again, looking at a few tens of millimetres in some spots. Again, we won't look in too much detail as they are kind of a bog standard thunderstorm warning, but you can see here expecting still some disruption in these areas where we just saw on the live radar. Heavy showers and storms are continuing. Now, if you look at the latest UK view, you can see all of those storms early this morning clearing northwards, then turning into that longer spell of rain through Scotland. That will slowly disintegrate away and clear through this evening and into tomorrow morning. Could be a few hefty showers around across eastern England. Again, looking scattered and isolated, but still there, but should clear through. As we head into Monday, it's a drier day with a bit of cloud and a few bits and bobs of rain further northwards, but mostly speaking, it's slightly cooler, but more pleasant, with lots of sunshine, temperatures still low 20s, could even get towards 25 degrees in a few spots. Into Tuesday, a bit of rain and cloud around with this westerly flow, but again, much drier and sunnier for most, and that continues into Wednesday and most likely into Thursday as well. And Thursday, Friday, we could start to see that warm air re-emerging from the south. You can already see it's much fresher through this week with the upper air temperatures around 5, 6, 7 degrees, which is a couple of degrees above average. But you can see the heat and humidity getting cleared away now, but it re-emerges as we head through Wednesday into Thursday. And you can see this with the upper air temperatures back in the mid to high teens, which will be warm enough to give high 20s, if not low 30s. And we see that on the max temperatures here. As we head through the rest of this afternoon, 27 degrees in the Far East, but it is cooling already this afternoon. And you see as we head into Sunday, much fresher around the low 20s, 21 to 23. Into Monday, similar story, 25, 26, so nudging up a little bit. And into Tuesday, again 26, 27, and finally Wednesday, 27, 28. We would expect into Thursday getting back towards 30 degrees once again. So small drop in temperature over the next couple of days, but really not all too much, just less oppressive before it does start to ramp up again later on this working week with another hotter spell potentially arriving as we head towards next weekend. And we see that on the longer range charts now. The low pressure system that's given us our showers and storms over the past 24 hours now clearing away. More of a westerly flow, but still under higher pressure for much of the next few days. But eventually high pressure moves back to the east and it encourages a southerly wind. Could be a bit of instability in the far northwest, but you can see it's a much more stable southerly wind. So it'll be hot and dry. Longer term though, high pressure stays in control, but eventually right toward the end of this run, there could be a little bit more of a westerly influence, or perhaps some slightly fresher air at times, but we're never far from the heat. If we go to this week, you see the heat arriving from the south once again, Thursday, Friday, clearing perhaps into the end of the weekend, and then more southerly pushes could arrive as we head towards the end of this run. So as I said, not expecting it to be hot every single day now for the rest of June, the next 2.5 weeks. Not expecting that, but expecting it to be up and down with mostly above average and potentially hot conditions, multiple spikes of heat in the next few weeks. Now, if you compare to the latest GM, very similar. Again, the high pressure in control over the coming days. Southerly push once again through Thursday, Friday, but you can see it's under a much more stable flow. And eventually we do start to see a westerly flow re-emerging, but it stays warm and dry with the jet stream well to our north. And then finally, if we compare to the ECMWF, broadly similar, those southerly winds re-emerging next week, staying pretty stable and dry, but different to the GFS and the GEM. In the extended range, definitely more of a westerly flow and fresher feel with northwesterly winds and more low pressure moving in. So that's quite a change from a lot of the other runs today and generally what we've seen recently. So perhaps ECMWF is either having a bit of a blip with this run, or perhaps it's cottoning onto something that the other runs are not seeing. We'll have to wait and see, because it's really for the last few days of June, which is good couple of weeks away, but it's something to keep an eye on, as it could show potentially a pattern change arriving. The first kind of hints of that, but as I said, we'll wait and see. Now to finish, if we look at the latest ensembles, back towards average over the next day or two, but slowly climbing above average progressively, and then towards the end of the week, we're kind of 7 to 10 degrees above average once again with this spike in heat. But you see the difference is it's dry the next 5 to 7 days. Beyond that, it drops back towards average, but that's just general uncertainty with the ensembles. Most, though, stay average to above average. There's plenty of spikes in heat. So again, we'll wait and see exactly what is in store, but definitely above average temperatures look fairly locked in for the next week to 10 days, maybe even for the rest of June. Precipitation, though, does pick up into the final week of June, but I suspect, again, similar to these cooler runs, that is just uncertainty within the ensembles at that time frame. You can see the 2 metre dew points the 2 metre temperatures are still very warm, mid-20s for much of the next 7 to 10 days. And then if we do just touch on the dew points, you can see it's much cooler with those dew points over the next couple of days. So should feel not as oppressive. Those dew points were up towards the mid to high teens yesterday, again aiding those storms, whereas they're almost 10 degrees cooler today. So should feel less sticky, less humid, and less kind of tropical out there, but still pleasant and warm. And if you finish by looking at the ensembles for the east of the ref, you can see the drop in temperatures overnight, back towards average, and then another spike of heat later on this week, and then a drop back towards average. But again, similar to the GFS, lots of warmer runs, some of those cooler runs, which are typical ensemble uncertainty. So generally speaking, remaining summery over the next week or so. Slightly cooler and fresher the next couple of days, but still warm and pleasant, definitely t-shirt and shorts weather for most. Before later on this week, it starts to get much warmer, hotter once again, and potentially oppressive with that southerly wind and those hotter air masses re-emerging. Given it's looking dry later on this week, I suspect we could reach our hottest temperatures of the year. But again, we'll wait and see what the UKV has in store, whether we do get to that 30 plus degree temperature. I suspect 31 or 32 is definitely on the cards for maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week. But again, we'll wait and see. Given the upper air temperatures we're seeing, that is definitely a possibility. It'll just depend on the exact wind direction and timings of these air masses. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.